cycle of human perspective.
Welcome to Unbiased and on the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight for Paranormal Frequencies. Sherry, tell us about our wonderful guest this evening.
Tonight we have Robert Waggoner. He's the author of the acclaimed book Lucid Dreaming Gateway to the Inner Self, now in its 10th printing, and he's co-author of Lucid Dreaming Plain and Simple. He's the past president of the International Association for the Study of Dreams. Robert has co-edited a quarterly magazine, Lucid Dreaming Experience, for more than 15 years. Besides speaking at universities around the world, conducting online workshops with glidewing.com, he's hosted lucid dream workshops in Europe, the MidEast, and South America. A lucid dreamer since 1975, he brings considerable depth and experience to his presentations. Welcome, Robert.
Sherry, thanks for having me, Shane. I appreciate it.
Oh, welcome, man. It's an honor to have you here. And you know, I've known Sherry for a while now, and she always talks about you. She's like your biggest fangirl. You know what I mean? So it's wonderful that you've taken the time to come on here. It's kind of you, and I love your work. So she's the one that's read all your books multiple times, though. So I will chime in a little bit, but she will. I just saw you on Inspire Nation with Michael, and I really enjoyed that as well.
That's good. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I wanted to have Robert on because, I've made friends with everybody in the chat room, and I just thought that he could bring, his knowledge to them because they've asked questions. I know I have his book right here. It's autographed, Lucid Dreaming Gateway to the Inner Self. This is the one that is, there's a new cover on the new one, but the other one, the Lucid Dreaming Plain and Simple, I mailed to Jane. So she's in the chat room probably. So Jane hasn't, she can't hold it up, but,
Well, I'm showing it now. Lucid Dreaming Plain and Simple, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
I've got that one on the screen. Perfect.
And so anyway, where I thought we could start was that he could briefly tell us, what is a lucid dream for those that might not know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, good. So a lucid dream is any dream in which you realize within the dream that you're dreaming. So you'll literally stop and say, wait a second, this is too strange. Oh, this must be a dream. And so when you become aware in a dream that you're dreaming, then you can decide what you want to do. You can talk to dream figures. You can fly around. You can consciously explore and even experiment. And that's the great thing about lucid dreaming is it's a dream so that then you can begin to play around. And I'll tell you that the first spontaneous lucid dream I had, I was a young guy. I found myself in the library. I saw this little Tyrannosaurus Rex walking through the book racks. And I thought, wait a second, dinosaurs are extinct. And that's when I realized, oh, this must be a dream. And so even though I was like 10 or 11 years old, I realized, hey, I'm dreaming this. And I didn't know you could do anything. So I just told myself, I've had more than 1,000 lucid dreams. And I've just realized you can really take it very, very
Can you hear me, Sherry? Okay, because for some reason the audio, your audio is not coming through, you guys. It just whacked that on me. 1 second here. It was working. Yeah, it just stopped a second ago. Something went wrong with Skype. I might have to reconnect. Yeah, I think it did the same thing that it did for. I don't know how I'm able to hear you and it's not coming through here. Let me try this. Properties. Let me try to switch and switch back. No, it just stopped just then. Can you say something now?
Me?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's working now. I'm sorry, you guys. I have no idea what happened. It just glitched out. So it ended right the last little segment of what Robert was saying. Sorry, it's never happened before. That was weird. It seemed like it was a Skype thing, but I don't normally use Skype, so I'm not really sure. We still got you, Robert?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, sorry for that little interruption. It just cut out like on the very end of what you were saying, and then I didn't hear anything that Sherry said.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just talking about how I had learned from him tonight on an interview that I was listening to that I must not have heard before, about that it helped to be aware, in waking life, for you to be aware in the dream state. So I think that's maybe a lot of my problem, and now I can focus on working on that, because that is probably it. But anyway, I thought you could tell us about the benefits of lucid dreaming, because there's a lot of them.
Yeah, most people, when they become lucidly aware in a dream, they just fly around, have fun, do crazy stuff, talk to dream figures, and it's all kind of pretty simplistic. But as you go deeper and deeper into lucid dreaming, you can actually use it to access creativity. You can use it to deal with emotional issues like phobias you might have, or any sort of trauma or anything like that. People have used lucid dreaming to heal their physical bodies. There's just some fantastic stories about that.
I'm having more technical difficulties.
Sorry.
Do you hear that, Robert?
Yeah, we can hear it.
So sorry.
That's no problem.
Are you there? I think it's ghosts. Gotta be a paranormal interference.
That's interesting.
Hey.
There, are we all here? You sound weird.
I'll call you guys back here.
Wait, there you are.
Share sensitive information here. Sorry. Okay.
That is so weird. I've never had that happen.
Okay, I'm going to try to add it back in then.
Uh-oh, Robert left.
There we go. I'm going to add share back in. Here we go.
Well, Jane, you sound pretty.
It's still doing funny. No, that is so weird, because we've been doing this for like, what? A year?
I can see that we're both broadcasting.
Well, Shane, every time you talk, it sounds like.
Can you see if they can hear just us talking?
Just talk.
Cool. You better mute yourself because it's just really bad. It is. Okay. So anyway, the back to the benefits of lucid dreaming. So, did you mention the healing stuff yet or no?
Yeah, so you can use it to play around and have fun, but you can also use it for emotional healing, for physical healing. You can use it to access creativity. You can do something that I do in my lucid dreams, and a lot of people do, which is you can interact with what I call your larger awareness just by ignoring the dream figures and asking questions of the dream or your unconscious mind. And also, people have used it for thousands of years to do spiritual practices. And so, some amazing things you can do is just like meditate in a lucid dream. And oftentimes, you'll just have profound experiences within 10, 20, 30 seconds. So there's so much stuff you can use lucid dreaming for. It's really an open platform that you can do anything that you dream up.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was neat. Okay. So there was a story that you told about, like, was it plantar's warts that she had on her feet? Okay.
Yeah, there's this woman, she'd had plantar warts on her feet that were so painful that it's really hard for her to walk. And so for a month or two, she'd been trying to visualize them to go away, and nothing was happening. And so she talked to a friend of mine, Ed Kellogg, and he asked her, well, why don't you try in a lucid dream to heal them? And so she became lucid that week. She remembered she wanted to heal her plantar warts. And so what she did, Sherry, she just created a ball of healing light between her hands in the lucid dream. And then she put this ball of healing light over each of her feet, intending for them to be healed. And the amazing thing was when she woke up, all the plantar warts had turned black. And within 10 days, they all fell off and never returned.
It's so amazing.
Yeah, it's just a simple way that people have used lucid dreaming to heal their physical bodies. Sometimes they don't always do it on the first time. Sometimes it'll take like 2 times, but the fact that they can do it at all is really just powerful. I do that magazine that you mentioned, the Lucid Dreaming Experience, and this one guy had read my book, and in my first book, I have a real detailed chapter on how people have healed themselves in lucid dreams. And so what he had is what people call GERD, that gastroesophageal reflux disorder. And his GERD was so bad that he had to sleep in a lazy boy. He had to sleep sitting up. He couldn't sleep laying down. And so he tried all the medical doctors' suggestions, and he's on medicines and all, but it still really didn't help very much. So he read my book, and he thought, he's a lucid dreamer. Maybe he could give it a try. The first time, he became so excited when he became lucid that he really hadn't thought out much of a plan. And so he kind of tried to do a little bit of a healing by just making some affirmations. But then, so he said when he woke up, he felt maybe 20% better. But then he said a week or 2 later, he became lucid again. And this time, he really had a plan in mind. And he said when he woke up from the second lucid dream that he knew he was healed. And he said after that, for the first time in years, he could sleep in bed just like anybody. And he just couldn't believe that he had overcome GERD after 2 lucid dreams of trying to heal himself. So this is really a powerful thing. I mean, when you're at this deep level of the unconscious mind, what the Buddhists say who practice dream yoga, they say that an action performed at this level is like 7 times more powerful than one performed at the waking level. And I think it's because you're really deep down in your mind. And so it's like there you can adjust things that are a little bit harder to.
And then they'll start dreaming a lot, and they have weird experiences that you can tell that they're like having lucid experiences. And so I just try to tell them some of your stuff, and I've had some profound things. Like I work with straight weekends, like I was keeping my grandsons out of daycare, and so when I go back the next weekend, they told me stuff like one guy, his father had committed suicide, and they had argued right before and all this. And I told him when next time he felt like that he could try to go see his dad and talked to him. And the last thing he told me was that he had ended up in a baseball field when he was a child and he was playing, but he said his dad never went to his games, and he was sitting in the bleachers and they waved to each other. And he was crying when he told me. So, I mean, like, that's developing. I wish they'd let me, like, teach it there later, like with a little outline or something. I'm thinking about it, but I've been there a year and I'm going to try to say something about it. But the other one, this was really cool. I told him about it because he was having scary experiences, and he ran into an ex-girlfriend that had passed away. Oh, wow. And he said to her, what are you doing here, or something like that. And she said, you're in my reality, I'm not in yours, or something like that. Right. And they had a nice talk and hugged and everything. But what was so cool was that the next day he was crying, and he called to tell his mom about it. And she freaked out because she hadn't seen the little girl's mom since the funeral, and she had ran into her in the grocery store that morning.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So,
you know, it's amazing some of the stories that happen. I'll tell you one that really got me. So, you know, my first book, Lucid Dreaming Gateway to the Inner Self, came out back at the very end of 2008. And about 2012 or 13, I got an email from a guy, and he said, I wanted to write you after I graduated from community college. And he said, the reason I wanted to is because that means that I've been off of methamphetamines for 2 years now. And he said, I want to tell you how lucid dreaming just got me off of drugs. And so what had happened to this guy is, out in California, he'd been arrested twice, put in court-ordered rehabilitation, you know, drug rehabilitation twice. You know, the first time he didn't do any difference. The second time he's in there, and he knew he was stuck there for 90 days, and he's bored out of his mind. And so at his drug counselor's desk, he saw my first book, Lucid Dreaming Gateway to the Inner Self. And so he knew what a lucid dream was, and he'd had some as a kid. And so he asked to borrow the book. And he said when he got to the part about how you could interact with your larger awareness by just ignoring the dream figures and shouting out questions, he said he thought that sounded so cool. So he began to have lucid dreams, and he would do that. And in the lucid dreams, his larger awareness started talking to him about his life. And so one time his larger awareness said to him, do you want to see what's going to happen if you continue to use drugs? And he's in a lucid dream. He goes, sure, why not? And he said it was like watching this video of his life, of how many people he would hurt, how he would hurt his physical body, and how it would end so badly. And he said when he woke up from that lucid dream, he realized he had to take this whole thing serious and get off of drugs. He realized how bad it was. Wow. Then there was another woman who told me about a young guy she was doing therapy for, who was an agoraphobic guy. I think something horrible happened in this kid's house, and he'd never leave the house after that. Anyway, that kid didn't like doing regular therapy, didn't want to do regular dream work, but he was really interested in lucid dreaming. And so again, he became a lucid dreamer, got into it. He would begin to interact with the larger awareness, this awareness behind the dream. And it would say something to him like, do you remember what you were doing in your last dream? And the kid would go, oh, you mean when I was killing everybody and burning down the village and shooting everybody? And the larger awareness said, yes. Do you think you could have done a different response? Could you had a different response to all that? And the woman told me, the therapist told me, she was stunned by the conversations that this guy was having with his larger awareness. And within 6 months, he got over his agoraphobia. He had been agoraphobic for 2.5 years, hadn't left the house. And finally, he left the house to go to a little lucid dream conference on the West Coast. So I mean, I'm with you on this one, Sherry. I think there's a lot of potential here, but a lot of people don't know what lucid dreaming is. They don't know how to get there. But when you start to hear the stories, you realize how powerful it can be.
Yeah, there's just one more thing I wanted to tell you. I take care of a lot of patients that are on ventilators and stuff. And they tell me like in report, oh, this person's unresponsive or whatever. And so what I do is start taking like the podcasts on YouTube and put them on my phone and like put them by their pillow and then pray no one went in there and caught me doing. And there's this one guy, he loved him, and I would go in there. They say he couldn't talk or anything, and I'd say, "Do you want to hear another one?" And he would say, "Yes." And I'd let him hear, because my thought was that maybe instead of being stuck in bed, being all paralyzed and stuck to a machine, that he could maybe. And then I kind of have a little knowing that it's possible that maybe some of them get that gift anyway. Maybe that's.
Yeah. I remember. I read a book by Jane Gackenbach, who's one of the early researchers on lucid dreams, and she interviewed this guy who had been in a horrible car accident and went into a coma for 2 weeks, and this guy explained what it was like to be deep in a coma, because he said it was like he kept retreating from the pain. He kept going inside himself deeper and deeper and deeper until finally he could get to a place that was free of the pain. But he said it was just kind of this space, and he was consciously aware there, but he knew he didn't want to go to the top side, become awake again, because the pain would be so severe. But then he said at some point he realized he had to go topside, and he started working through it and working through the pain until he popped out on the other side. And so I think a lot of times these people who are near the end of their life or in a coma or in whatever, sometimes they're having some pretty profound experiences of consciousness, but most of us never get to those levels, so we really don't know, where their head's at. But I think by being able to listen to something and do that kind of thing, it's really helpful. It's curious that in some Buddhist sects, when a person is near death or even after death, they basically conduct these ceremonies where they're telling them how to respond to the after-death experience, and so that even though the person is, slipping away into death or they've already died, they just keep telling them, this is how you do it, this is how you do it, to avoid another reincarnation and kind of merge with the light. So yeah, I think all that kind of stuff of passing on that information can be really helpful.
Yeah, I'm thoroughly convinced that like dementia patients are like half here, half there. I mean, I've just seen too much proof of that, it's so interesting.
I remember a woman told me that one time she became lucidly aware when she saw her father, who had dementia. And her father came up to her and said, "If they say it's me, it's not really me." And she said, "What?" And he said, "If they say it's me, it's not really me." And she thought that was really weird to hear, and she woke up. Then that morning, they got a call that the father had passed away at the Alzheimer's clinic at the nursing home. But the strange thing was, it wasn't the father, it was his roommate.
Oh, no, wow.
And the nursing staff had got the names confused, and they were calling up the whole family, but they're calling up the wrong family.
Oh, no. And he didn't want her to be upset.
But that's the weird thing. She said in waking life, if she walked into the room, he wouldn't know who she was, even though it's a daughter and all that. But in the dream state, he came and said, "If they say it's me, it's not really me."
Oh, my God.
And so he was trying to pre-warn her that if you hear, he's basically trying to tell her, if you hear that I'm dead, that's not quite right.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I was hoping you could tell, there's a story about, was it someone it was some property that a grandmother told? Yeah.
Yeah, so I do these online workshops with GuideWing, and what's great about them, they go on for 30 days, and so you can teach a lot of the induction techniques and how to stabilize lucid dreams and that. But there's this one woman, she's a good lucid dreamer, and she said she knew in her family that there was a family secret. And she could tell, when the whole family, the extended family, would get together for a picnic each summer, that there's this one part of the family that wouldn't talk to the other part of the family. And she'd ask her parents about it, and they'd just act dumb and wouldn't say anything. So one night, her uncle appears, and she thinks, wait a second, Uncle Bob's been dead for 10 years now. And then she realized, oh, this is a dream. And so at that, he came up to her and said, if you want to find out what the family secret is, then you have to do this. You got to go to the county courthouse. You got to go to the second floor. You got to go to this specific room. And then you got to ask for file XK 1733. And she had him repeat it a couple times so she could remember. And then she decided to wake up and write it all down. So that week, she went to the courthouse. She goes up to that room, asks for of the extended family had sold the farmland without telling the other folks and getting their permission. And then they got into a big legal battle, that went on for, a year or so. And so when you have that kind of experience, a deceased uncle comes in a lucid dream and tells you where to find the file that'll explain everything to you. And the beautiful thing is, in lucid dreaming, we can explore it.
Yes, it's so interesting. I know there was one other thing about the benefits I want to talk about people like working on maybe like in improving their skills on sports and music and things like that.
Yeah, like over in Germany, there was a guy, Paul Foley, who was a psychologist and a sports therapist. And he was really big into lucid dreaming. And in fact, he taught himself how to lucid dream when he was in the university in 1959. So anyway.
They must have touched something.
Yeah. So, again, he realized the practice of dreaming, maybe he would develop muscle memory. So he thought, maybe I could
Uh-oh.
He said after a while, he began to be able to see much better. A lot of stories go through.
Can you hear me? Is your mic on again?
Yeah, Shane, it seems like your mic might.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you're saying, but every time you speak, there's a lot of static.
There. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
When you turned it back on, it was cutting him out.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Poor Shane.
Yeah, over in Germany, a lot of athletes. I think I read some survey that 8% of professional athletes in Germany say they use lucid dreaming to become better at their athletic skill. And so you just think someday some American lucid dreamer is going to blow everybody's mind, in the Olympics. And when they ask them how they did it, they'll say, well, I was good at lucid dreaming and I just practiced in my lucid dreams till I figured out a better way to run or do pole vault or whatever. So
it just seems like it can help so many aspects of your life. And then I'm starting to wonder now, which I won't get into, but I think that you might even be able to help things that happened before now, because I've had some weird synchronicities with that. That's a question I wanted to ask you with lucid dreaming and how our thoughts create our reality and all that. What do you think about synchronicities?
Yeah, it's kind of wild. Just kind of historically, about 50, 60 years ago, Carl Jung, who of course was a therapist in Switzerland and and all. One of his patients was Wolfgang Pauli, and Wolfgang Pauli was kind of what people call the father of modern physics. And some of what Wolfgang Pauli was experiencing was synchronicities. So he's having dream work, but he's also noticing waking synchronicities that were happening. And so sometimes I think that's the beautiful thing is as I went deeper into lucid dreaming, I realized that all of this is an interconnected oneness. And that's in one way how synchronicities occur. Because in a lucid dream, if I expect something to happen, oftentimes it'll happen. And it's kind of very similar to in the waking reality as well. If we use our mind really thoughtfully and powerfully, that we want to connect with somebody, and we just keep thinking about it, I want to connect with so-and-so, I want to connect with so-and-so, we'll kind of alter the universe so we actually connect with the person. But it's one of those things you really have to focus, you really have to use your intent and all that kind of thing. So I think synchronicities just show that at this deeper level, we're actually connected.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many. It's like it almost seems like I'm in some kind of movie. You know what I mean? Like it's like funny. Like the signs talk to me, and I don't know. It's crazy, but it's fun.
Oh yeah. No, it's a lot of fun when you realize that your thoughts are connected again with what you're experiencing, and so that's why you have to kind of focus on your thoughts. Also, you have to kind of realize your impulses and intuitions as well, because sometimes I think our impulses are coming to us, from our larger awareness, knows which way we should go, or, if we went and parked over there, we're going to meet somebody and have an important conversation. But if our ego self decides to park over there, we'll just miss the meeting. And so that's why, sometimes you just got to be a little spontaneous, be a little bit open. And if your larger awareness wants you to go talk to that person, just go chat them up, say hi. And sometimes you have the most incredible things occur then.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So I was hearing you say about how kind of like if you were afraid of something or whatever in the dream state, to go up and talk to it and ask it what it represents. And then to even have, not say that, but go up to people even in real life if there was someone that you felt, because there's a reason that they're making you feel that way in real life.
Yeah, that's one thing I realized as I went deeper in lucid dreaming is that if you just always stay in your comfort zone, you're never going to grow. And so every time in the lucid dream when something fearful appeared, instead of running away from it or trying to fight it, I tried to understand it or accept it or something like that. So if it was like an angry dream figure, I'd send it love and compassion. And then you just watch it shrink down into, like a little boy or something. And when you realize that when you change your mind about it, when you send it love and compassion, it becomes little, then you realize that it's really a product of your mind. It's your fear, it's your projection, and it's not something happening to you. And so that's why in the waking state, let's say I was going out to give a talk on lucid dreaming, and I see 5 guys in the back wearing black leather jackets with their arms all folded, looking at me like I'm a total idiot. When there'd be a break, those would be the people that I'd go and talk to first, because I'd want to ask them, hey, how you guys doing? What are you thinking? You got some questions? And oftentimes, after I talked to them, I'd realize that there wasn't anything to fear, and they weren't, they just wanted to have their viewpoint expressed. And so that's how you can kind of begin to realize that lucid dreaming helps us expand our comfort zone, and then we can begin to expand it in the waking life, and so we can feel more at ease and less anxious.
What was interesting to me when I first started studying your work is the story about knocking the hats off.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you what happened. So at the beginning of my lucid dreaming, I started lucid dreaming before the scientific evidence emerged in 1981. And so there really wasn't anyone to talk to, but I just kept lucid dreaming because I found it so interesting. But like one time, I was in a lucid dream, flying around having fun, and I decided that there's like this crowd of people beneath me in the lucid dream. And so I was going to fly around, and just anybody who had a hat on, I'd knock off their hat. And so I'd do a loop and knock off a hat, do another loop, knock off a hat. And then about the fifth time I was coming up to a guy to knock off his hat, suddenly this hand reached up and grabbed me in mid-flight. And I could feel this strong arm around my forearm. And I thought, whoa, what's happening here? And I think I broke free. But when I woke up, I realized that not all dream figures are created equal. You know, some of them are almost as conscious and aware as you are. And sometimes there's dream figures that actually seem even more conscious and aware than you are. And so that's one of the wild things about lucid dreaming. 90% of the dream figures, or most of the dream figures, I would say, are products of your own mind. They're your own thoughts and feelings projected out there. But there are some dream figures who seem to have a consciousness and awareness and behavior that kind of shows that they're not products of your own mind or projections of your own mind.
And probably that was like when you're really young, and it's maybe part of the guidance to get you to seek more spiritual things. You know what I mean? In a way, guiding you to that, to figuring that out yourself.
Yeah, you know, that's a really good way of putting it, because first it taught me something that was important, which was respect. You know, you ought to respect your dream figures, and you know, you can kind of see that when you change your mind, if they change, then they're a product of your mind. But then there's this other group, I call them independent agents, and somehow they're in the dream state, and maybe there are long-term issues that you've had that are so empowered that now they're kind of like aware within your subconscious mind or whatever. But you always had to treat them with respect, and so that's why I always tell people in a lucid dream, you know, you should never insult a dream figure by saying, "Hey, do you know I'm dreaming you?" Because normally they look really like you're an idiot if you say something like that. And so the better thing to do is ask a dream figure, "Hey, what do you represent?" Or, "Hey, who are you?" And sometimes when these dream figures tell you who they are, you go, "Oh my God, this is that issue in my life that I need to resolve." And that's why they're so aware and conscious, is because they're all this energy connected around this issue that you need to resolve. And if you're thoughtful and approach it right, you can really resolve some big personal issues, or learn about what's actually going on deep inside your mind by interacting with these kind of dream figures. So yeah, it's incredible. And then there's also deceased dream figures. You know, sometimes they're just a projection of our mind, but sometimes when they give you information that's outside of your own knowing, then it makes it seem like they exist in their own right with their own knowledge and all. So that's why I always tell people, respect dream figures, and the best thing to do is ask them, "Who are you? What do you represent?" That kind of thing. Then you'll figure out where they're coming from.
Which leads me to the story about how you got help with writing your book.
Yeah, you know, that was so amazing. So you have to realize, I've been a lucid dreamer for more than 40 years. You know, I've been lucid dreaming for a long, long time. But back in around 2005 or so, I tried to write a book on lucid dreaming, but I got in about 50 pages and I just couldn't write anymore. I just had writer's block or hit the wall. And so I just put everything in a drawer and just forgot about it. Then it was about 2 years later, one night I found myself in a farmhouse down in the South, and the farm wife put beans on my plate, and I'm looking around thinking, wait a second, I don't live in the South. I don't live in a farmhouse. And then I thought, oh, this is a dream. And it was really interesting, Sherry. At that moment, I could feel this energy behind me. And so I always go to the area of the most energy. So I turned around and I looked, and it was a young black woman smiling at me. And so I picked her up and put her right in front of me, and I just said, "Who are you? Who are you?" And she replied, "I am a discarded aspect of yourself." And I thought, whoa, I've just met a discarded aspect of myself. But then I thought, well, how do you respond to a discarded aspect? And so I thought, well, if she's discarded, then that means she wants to be accepted. And so just from my heart, I just sent her all this acceptance and understanding and just total acceptance. And she began to shrink down and shrink down. And finally, when I got to totally accepting her, she just became colored light. If you can imagine bits of colored light. And they flew from where she was right into my chest. And it was so energetic, I woke up. And when I woke up, I knew I was energetically different. But it was about a week later, I realized that every day that week I'd been thinking, I should try to write that book on lucid dreaming, that project I discarded 2 years ago when I didn't think it was possible to do. And when I realized, oh my God, that's what that woman was. She was all that collected energy of my first attempt, that she was the discarded energy of it all. It was wild. It was wild. And then I went ahead and wrote my first book. And, I do have to tell you, when I was writing this first book, it was like there were times when it was like my intuition was basically suggesting to me what I should write. Or I'd have 10 lucid dreams that I could put in at a place, but it'd tell me, no, put in this particular one. And so I just did whatever my intuition told me, and really I think it really saved me in various points. Yeah. As you begin in lucid dreaming to consciously interact with your unconscious mind more, I think it makes a easier linkage between intuitions. You get intuitions much easier than you would otherwise, because you've gotten used to communicating. And so it really made it easier to write the book.
It's so amazing. And I know I keep asking you to tell stories, but this is just stuff that I wanted the subscribers to hear, because like I said, I love them all so much, and I know they're loving it.
Okay.
The story about the mole. Do you know what I'm talking about? The girl with the mole on her body.
Oh yeah. So this was a funny one. So I wrote this book, and I have this free online magazine and all. And so one day I get an email from this young guy. He's a student at the University of Florida, and he tells me, "Do you really think that you can get information from somebody that, get information about somebody that you have no conscious knowledge of?" And I told him, "I know you can. I've done it. But if he wants me to prove it, I'm just going to tell him that he ought to become lucid and do it himself, figure it out for himself, and then he'll get his own evidence." And so this guy, he's talking to one of the girls in the dorm, and she said, "Well, how about this? I have a mole on my back, and it's a really prominent mole. And here's the deal. If you become lucid, you come and try to find the mole, and then when you wake up, we'll see if you found the right place." And so, later that week, he becomes lucid, and, he tries to go down the dorm hall in his lucid dream, but he says it was so weird. All these people came out of their dorm rooms and were yelling at him that this was real, and he's not in a dream and everything. And he said he got so distracted that he woke up. So then the next lucid dream, he thought, wait a second, I'm not going out into the hallway because all the distractors will come out. So he shouted out for the young woman to come to him, and all of a sudden the door opens, and in walks this young woman, and he said something like, "Show me your mole." And he said, all of a sudden she pulls up her shirt, and right above her rump is this prominent mole. And he said he felt really surprised in the lucid dream because he thought she had kind of hinted that it was on her side or something. But he said he could see it right there, right above her rump, this big mole. And so he woke up and he knew he had the answer. So he goes down to her room, and he said, "Last night in a lucid dream, I discovered where your mole is." And she goes, okay, I got my T-shirt on. You just put your finger on my back wherever you think it is, and we'll see if you get the right place. And he put his finger right above her rump, and she pulled up her shirt, and his finger was right on where her mole is.
That's so amazing.
He said he was blown away. He was blown away. But that's why I say that I think at a deeper level, we're all interconnected. And that's why I think lucid dreaming helps show us that we're part of an interconnected oneness. But we got to go down deep to this level of the unconscious to kind of get that information easily. We get it during the waking state, but we got to kind of go to a different state in order to get it easily. But yeah, that's a great story. Boy, you're bringing up some of my good stories, Sherry. That's super.
Yeah, I'm an expert on everything you say. Okay, so I think it's interesting that, I've came to this conclusion. I just want to see if you thought maybe it was right. That, our thoughts create our reality. So therefore, like people that go to church that are Christian and experience Jesus and stuff like that, when they die, they probably experience that kind of a reality, as well as the Buddhists or whatever. But that's why some people might visit their grandma who lives in a cabin in the woods or whatever, because everybody kind of gets, and was it you that told the story about the salt water and fish, or no? There was, okay, I don't think it was. Maybe there was a guy that visited his dad on the other side or whatever in a dream state, and the dad said, son, look, this, he was a big fisherman, and he said this pond has salt and freshwater fish in it, so in his afterlife he had a pond that was stocked with both fish. So I mean, there's stuff like that. Do you think that's how it is?
What's really interesting, I have a good friend, Ed Kellogg, who's a wonderful lucid dreamer. And so he decided to do some experiments with lucid dreaming and people who were recently deceased, like had passed away in the last 2 or 3 months. So he would become lucid and try to find them in the lucid dream state. And the interesting thing, Sherry, oftentimes he'd find them, and they would be surrounded by their hobbies, the stuff they loved, when they were a young person, or stuff that they had collected. Or he said sometimes he would find them and they were still basically hallucinating a hospital environment like what they had endured before they passed away. And so he would be lucid and he'd begin to interact with them. And sometimes they'd tell him things, sometimes they'd tell him to go away and all that kind of stuff. But oftentimes when he'd wake up from the lucid dreams, he'd ask the family of the deceased, he'd go, in a lucid dream, I feel like I met your father. Would you mind if I told you about it and see if any of this stuff makes sense? And so then he'd tell him, I saw your father and he's around all these brass telescopes, and they go, oh, when he was a kid, he collected brass telescopes. And then, my friend would tell him more, and he'd go, oh my gosh, he used to dress exactly like that when he was 30. He loved dressing, like that. And it was so obvious by Ed's interaction with these deceased figures that he had picked up stuff about their lives that he didn't know, and that they were basically creating with their own mental energy something that appealed to them, that they were kind of, so basically what I'm saying is people kind of create their own heaven and hell. Mm-hmm. If you think that, your life is all about your illness, then you create a hospital and you just hang out for months and months and months in your illness until you finally decide to, get up out of bed and realize that you're no longer even in the waking state. And so a lot of these people, the thoughts are creating the reality. And that's one of the beautiful things about lucid dreaming, especially in some of these spiritual traditions, is they say, if you want to understand the after-death reality, learn about lucid dreaming. when you see how your thoughts create your experience, then you'll know how to respond when you pass away. You'll realize that the issue really isn't out there. It's really about what's inside your mind, what's in the nature of your mind.
Yes, that's just so cool. I love it. And maybe there's that higher awareness that helps guide them along and help them out of the hospital or help them out of hell into,
Yeah.
Yes, that's so neat.
Yeah, no, it's really wild. I've oftentimes told people about my niece. One time I was home over the holidays, Christmas holidays, and I asked my niece, who's about 20, I said, have you ever had any lucid dreams? And she goes, oh, I've had about 10 or 15, but they don't mean anything. And I said, what do you mean they don't mean anything? What are you doing in your lucid dreams? And she said, oh, if I find myself in a crummy part of town in the lucid dream, I'll dress up all the buildings, I'll paint them up and plant flowers and do all that kind of crazy stuff. And I thought, oh gosh, a lucid dream designer, that's kind of wild. But I told her, if you want to find out if they have meaning, this is what you got to do. Just the next time you become lucid, just ignore the dream figures and shout out, hey, dream, show me something important for me to see. And so about a month later, she was being chased by a lion. She hid behind a rock. The lion was jumping over the rock to get her. And she thought, wait a second, lions don't run free in Kansas City. This has to be a dream. And so she stood up and said, don't you dare. And the lion just stopped mid-flight. And then she remembered my statement, so she shouted out, hey, dream, show me something important for me to see. And when she did that, suddenly this blue hallway appeared, and at the end of it was a little white-haired lady. She walks down there to see who the lady is, and she realizes it's her great-grandmother who passed away when she was like 3 years old. And her great-grandmother is so happy to see her and says, Jane, you have such wonderful timing. And Jane asked her, what do you mean I have wonderful timing? And the great-grandmother said, oh, I get out of purgatory tomorrow. and my little niece, Jane, had to ask me, what's this purgatory thing? And I said, well, sometimes, some people after they die, they have to repent a little bit more before they get to go to heaven. But anyway, they had this long conversation, her and her great-grandmother. And at the end of it, her great-grandmother said, I want you to tell your mom to remember the back room in my house. And Jane asked her, what? And she said, just tell your mom to remember the back room in my house. And so Jane said, okay, and woke up. And she gave me a call, and she goes, what do I do with this? And I told her, you're the one who wants to know if lucid dreams have meaning. You got to call up your mom, tell her you had this lucid dream and what great-grandmother said. She called up her mom, and her mom burst into tears. Her mom said the happiest moments in her life occurred in the back room of great-grandma's house, because every Saturday morning she'd have all the grandkids come, and they could dress up as kings and queens and princesses and everything, and that there were no rules in the back room of Grandma's house. Everyone could have fun. And Jane was just blown away. And so I asked her, well, why was this so important to you? And Jane said, it's my father has had a terminal illness ever since I was a little kid. And people were constantly telling me, your dad's going to die soon. Your dad's going to die soon, because he had multiple sclerosis. And she said, so I've always, ever since I was a little kid, I've wondered what happens to people after they die. And so that's why this was, when I asked the dream, show me something important for me to see. And then it brings forward my great-grandmother, who passed away when I was like 3 or 4 years old. That's why this was important to me. So that's the beautiful thing about lucid dreaming. Not only can you interact sometimes with the deceased, you can interact with dream figures that are projections of your own mental energy, but you can also interact with this larger awareness when you shout out questions to it.
That's so amazing. Well, I'm sure that they're probably wanting to know how to do it, and the best way to do that is to buy the book Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple, and because that gives all the detailed information that you want to know. But we'll have Robert tell the part about at the beginning how he would from the Carlos Castaneda books, the Tonight in My Dreams, I'll see my hand and realize I'm dreaming. And then you got to add the one about the lady who wanted to do it so long and her husband.
Yeah, so So you have to realize that I was back in high school in 1975, and I was reading this book by Carlos Castaneda, Journey to Ixtlan. And in this book, his shamanic teacher, Don Juan, tells him that in his dreams he should find his hands, realize he's dreaming, and become consciously aware. And I thought, can you really do this? But there wasn't really a technique. And so I thought, okay, I know about the power of suggestion. So this is what I did, Sherry, and anyone can do this. Each night before you go to sleep, just spend about 5 minutes right before you go to bed. Just put up your hands and looking at the palm of your hands, and just keep saying quietly in your mind, tonight in my dreams I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. Tonight in my dreams I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. Tonight in my dreams I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. And just keep looking at your hands. So I would do that for about 5 minutes and fall asleep and remember my dreams and see if I'd seen my hands. On the third night of doing this, I was walking through my high school hallway, and all of a sudden my hands just popped right in front of my face. And I thought, oh crap, my hands, this is a dream. And it was so wild to realize that these football players over here, those guys are just dream figures. And this wall that feels so cool, nubby, just like a real wall, actually it's a projection of my mind. It's made out of dream stuff. And so that's how I taught myself how to lucid dream way back in the dark ages before the scientific proof emerged in 1981. But so a lot of people have used this technique to become lucidly aware, just looking at your hands. Tonight in my dreams, I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. Because you might, in the dream, you might be climbing a ladder or opening a door. You'll see your hands and you'll think, wait a second, this is a dream. So anyway, this one woman told me that each night before she'd go to sleep, she'd sit there and look at her hands doing this. And her husband came to bed and said, what the heck are you doing? And she said, well, I'm looking at my hands and I'm telling myself, tonight in my dreams, I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. And this is a technique to become lucidly aware. And he goes, oh, okay, whatever. He falls asleep, and that night in his dreams, suddenly his hands pop up in front of his face, and he becomes lucidly aware. And she was so PO'd because she'd been trying for a week to have a lucid dream, and he does it on the first night. So it's a person who responds well to suggestion, then this is a good technique for you.
Yeah, and if not, there's others out there, and that book is really good at giving different options, to try and do it. And it's just really important to write down your dreams, y'all, and that really helps. Because I know at first I'd only remember a little bit of a dream, and if you keep doing it, pretty soon I'd remember like 5 dreams a night. So it just and if you stop writing in it, you stop remembering them too. So I want to be respectful of your time. I don't want to keep you too long, but I'm just so thankful that you came on here.
Oh, Sherry, I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun, and I'm always happy to come back on if you want to explore one area more deeply or something like that, or we could spend some time just talking about techniques and that kind of thing. But there really is a lot to learn, because it's kind of like swimming. If you're like a 5-year-old kid and someone took you to the pool and just threw you in there, you don't know how to swim, you don't know how to stay afloat. There's a lot of stuff you have to learn, and that's kind of how lucid dreaming is. You can become lucid, but a lot of times people become so excited they immediately wake up. And so one of the first things as a lucid dreamer learns is as soon as you become lucid, you got to stay calm, because if you get too excited, you're going to pop out of the lucid dream. So there's a lot of things you have to learn in order to kind of stabilize the lucid dream. But once you do that, you can just have profound lucid dreams that just blow your mind.
Yeah, it's so neat. And I thank you so much for coming on. And y'all have to get those books, because both of them are just, this is like anybody that does or studies lucid dreaming has this book. It's like the Bible of lucid dreaming. Anyway, thank you, Robert, for coming on to talk to us. I'm sorry, Shane. I don't know what happened. That's never happened before. He's been doing this so long. I've never seen it happen. Uh-oh. He's Yeah.
Anyway,
Love you,
thank
Frank.
you so much, and thanks everyone for listening. And if you have any questions, just go to my website, lucidadvice.com.
And we have those all in the description box for you. And I will contact you again. Maybe we can do some different subjects, in a few months. That'd be great.
Okay. Y'all take care.
Bye-bye.
See you, Shay. Bye.
I'm just going to hang up because